Thank you very much for inviting me to share what I have learned about how businesses can create social value as a consultant. So yes, thank you for inviting me here today. So I just want to briefly introduce my organisation, NCVO. So we are an NCVO network representing around 15,000 organisations across England. So we're a big network, and that our membership covers some of the smallest PTAs to up to the biggest research foundations and trusts that we have in this country. So a vast range of organisations. And one way I'd like to describe us is that we're sort of similar to Chamber of Commerce, but we are a chamber of social value, so to speak. So anything to do with social value is what we do. So So we work with a lot of organisations to support them with their volunteering and charitable work. So our role as NCVO is to bring organisations together, similar to what Danish UK Association, Chamber of Commerce do as well. And we also represent the sector, and we support the sector as well. And the sector, I mean non-profit organisations primarily, but of course we also work with other sectors too, like I will be telling you a little bit more about a bit later. And just a little bit of myself. So in essence, my role is to support organisations to plan and evaluate their work that is aimed to increase social impact or generate social value. And I absolutely love my job. I love doing that. It's basically fixing societal problems. So it's a lot about problem solving and thinking about and planning about, how can we make a greater social value. So it's very privileged to be working in this area. Okay, just a little bit about session then. So we will be kind of talking about 3 key areas around this subject area. And I think it's important to start with, why bother? Why would businesses need to do this? Or why should it be their role? So a little bit about different motivations, like, why businesses should be thinking about this. And I think there has been a bit of a seesaw change in recent years that has kind of made everyone as a society to think that, okay, we need to do a little bit more here, including businesses. And then we have a section thinking, okay, so how would you do that? How would you go about it? Because it's well enough to say, yes, we should do something, but then perhaps sometimes people and organisations are a bit stuck thinking of, okay, so what could we do? What can we do? So I will be showing, kind of giving you practical real life examples, different businesses that I have worked with in partnership in the past, and show through those examples and case studies what businesses could do to create a social value and social impact. And then there is a kind of final session thinking about, okay, so we know we should do it, we know how to do it, then how do we know that we are making progress? So a couple of tips about thinking about how would you plan and measure for greater social impact. So those are the 3 key areas that we will be covering in this webinar. Great. And then I would love you to tell me what you think are the biggest and most urgent social issues that we face currently. So I hope you have your mobile phones ready. So if you have your smartphone, or if you don't, just go on the screen to this website called mentee.com, and you will need to share. You will need to put the code in there, and you should be able to then respond to the poll. So I'm going to open the poll here for us all to see in a minute. So if you have any problems accessing the poll, do let me know, but it should be quite straightforward. So go to the website, enter the code, and respond to the questions. what are the biggest or most urgent social issues we face currently? Nice. So I can see there are some responses coming.
Can you share the code again?
Yes, sorry. So it's, let me just go back to.
I can just write it into the chat as well. I just
Yes, yeah, good idea. So let me just go back on. Sorry, I'm just kind of cruising through different screens here. So the Mentee, code is here. 50928.
There we go.
50928.
Perfect. I've written it in the chat as well now.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen now, and I'm going to go to the Mentee Poll, and I will share that with you instead. So just bear with me. What do we have? I don't think we're going to be in short supply in terms of describing different crises that we are facing nowadays. Thank you. I can see people are responding there. You can have up to 3 goes. So just anything that the top 3 ones I would encourage you to add there. So we have a bit of COVID there, poverty and inequality, global warming, health, homelessness, disease, uncontrollable disease, so related to the COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, loneliness. As you can see, a lot of different things. So we are not in the short supply, I'm afraid, and thinking about these societal issues. And all of these, I would say, are it's not something that is localized in the UK or even Europe or in the South. These are all global issues, so they matter to all of us around the planet. Great, thank you. So there are a lot of different things that we are facing. Okay, so isolation is becoming as a big thing there. Thank you. So I'm just a few more people joining us now. So what we will do, I will leave the poll open and to add to that poll, and then we will be sharing the final poll with you with the follow-up email. But I'm going to stop sharing it now and go back to my slides. Okay, so a lot of issues. And it's interesting, I mean, this is it's quite a recent poll that I'm sharing here with you. This is a poll by YouGov from last month, from May, asking what are the issues that UK should prioritise during the pandemic. And as you can see, it's health and well-being that seems to be a forefront and mind of everyone currently, especially as opposed to economic growth of the UK. So I think, again, there's kind of general agreement that this is important. We need to think about this, and not just during the COVID as we are now, but also in the aftermath, afterwards, what will happen. So I suppose, as a cliche, you can say the world has changed in the last few years, and we've had a lot of issues. And I think in that previous slide, you can see there is a Black Lives Matter, climate change issues, climate urgency. Prior to that, we had Me Too movement. So a lot of things, and I suppose you can throw Brexit in there as well. So a lot of issues. So it's something that we all should be thinking about together. And just a little bit about what does social value actually mean? What is social impact? So I'd like to illustrate it using this image of the two the football game scene using kind of two different scenarios. And this particular slide is giving you an illustrations of difference between equality and equity. So on the left-hand side, you can see everyone's got equal access to this football game, but it's not experienced the same way by everyone because there are additional issues, additional barriers that make it sometimes harder for some people to participate fully in life. And then on the right-hand side, there are some solutions to those issues, those problems. Like, for example, now with the COVID-19, I think people would be not telling the truth if they would say that COVID has not affected my mental health at all. It is affecting us all. And then kind of my purpose and the purpose of the civil society especially is to think about, you know, how can we address those issues. But we feel that, and I think it's not just the responsibility of the charities to do this alone. Businesses obviously also have a part to play here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why should you bother as businesses. And there are actually many good reasons for businesses to start thinking about it. It's not just because it feels good and it's morally right. There are good business reasons to be involved in this stuff as well. And I kind of noticed some of the key ones here on this slide. So first of all, it nurtures the purpose-driven leadership and inclusive development. And again, there has been a big change in recent years in terms of the new generation of very talented young people coming to the workforce, and they are actually really, really interested of looking at, you know, what are the, do I share the values and purpose of the business I want to go and work for. So that has become increasingly important as opposed to, you know, how much do I get paid. So that's quite interesting development there. So if you want to attract talented young new people to your business, then it's a good idea to think about your values and the purpose, and be more purpose driven as an organization in more general. And of course it helps to manage risk. Reputational risk as well. I mean, just yesterday there was a piece of news about IKEA, how there's a bit of a scandal that they have not been actually using wood that has been sustainably resourced because they had not been checking their supply chain properly. So there is the reputational risk for IKEA in there, and I bet it's going to be expensive for them to rectify it as well. So it makes sense in that sense, that way as well, to make sure that your business is creating social value as opposed to not, or taking advantage. And then enables businesses to take advantage of new market opportunities. And this is a really interesting and exciting one. I've had privilege to work with Cambridge Dutch Business School Social Ventures, where I go and do some impact training with them. And it's just amazing how kind of great ideas that have been generated that are to do with this stuff, are to do with social value. Just kind of one example, I remember having a conversation with a young man talking about he wants to start developing a company that makes graduation gowns from recycled plastic. And they actually went to Dragon's Den, and they have a very successful business there. But interestingly, one of the key reasons why they started this, or they wanted to start this business, was that they felt that actually the gowns are too expensive. So young people who are from less wealthy backgrounds are struggling to pay for it, and they can't buy their gowns because they're too expensive. So they hire them. So there was this kind of social. It started as that sort of idea, and then the recycling came as a recycled plastic came as a solution to that problem. And then, of course, it strengthens employee engagement. And of course your customer base engagement as well, and generates trust, because you're more transparent in terms of the way you do your business. That again in turn generates trust, and overall, if we're all doing a little bit, that it helps to catalyze this bigger change as well, and accelerating the path to more sustainable economy as well. So I think I kind of have to stop talking a little bit here, and I'm going to make you respond to a poll. So I'm going to launch the poll here, and there are 2 questions. First one is around your journey in this. So how much are you thinking about this currently? Where are you in your journey of integrating social impact into your business? So do respond to the poll. And then there is a second question: what generation do you consider yourself? Because that's another interesting area that I mentioned at the beginning, that the younger generations, the millennials, Generation Z in particular, the younger generations, they are a lot more purpose-driven and value-driven than us old folks are. Great, interesting. So just wanted to check, can you see the poll, Emma? Great, thank you. So we have few people completely new to social impact, but most of you seem to have started exploring this, or are already further up in your journey, consolidating your own approach. And actually, there is someone who's an organisation fully integrated, which is brilliant. And in terms of generations, I think we are pretty equally distributed. I mean, there are still a few people to respond, but I think I'm going to end the poll now. So we have most of you started exploring about where you are in social impact, and in terms of the generations, pretty mixed back again. So we have quite a few baby boomers, but we also have a kind of a similar amount of millennials and what we call Generation Y. Thank you, it's interesting. Just checking, can you see the results? Perfect. And I suppose kind of one thing, and I just kind of recap, is that the millennials, and the younger generations in general, they more heavily weight the values and culture of business, and the social value is more important issue for them. And then also there will be these increased societal pressures for the businesses to be more transparent in terms of how they're doing their business. And then there's, as kind of relatedly, there is some increase in transparency and call for increased transparency as well. And then, of course, technological advantages allow us to do stuff differently and be more innovative also in that societal arena. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is this chart. I don't know, is this familiar to you? Perhaps just comment on chat, or raise your hand or not, or if you've seen this before. This is a chart of 17 sustainable development goals that were agreed across nearly 200 countries, nations. So quite an amazing achievement. This happened about 5 years ago, where all the countries came together in the UN and decided on, okay, what do we as a society as a whole need to be focusing on for the next 10 years, 20 years, and so forth. And it was a little bit quiet when it first started. I think there was criticism saying that there are too many of these goals and it's confusing. But now I think because of the technological advancements, and also because all these other things that have happened since 2015 when these were first agreed, they have become a lot, you see these a lot more. And actually I work a lot with trusts and foundations, and I can see when they are developing their strategies, and also corporates as well, they are pinning their strategy and they values to these sustainable development goals. Just to give you some examples, Coca-Cola, for example, they have specifically identified 4 goals, which is 4, so quality education, 5, gender equality, and then number 6, which is around clean water. And then they have like a wrap-up goal, the 17 partnerships for the goals. Similar KPMG has, and I'll be talking about KPMGs a bit later as one of the case studies. They've specifically committed to 4, which is quality education, and 12, which is about responsible development, consumptions and production, and also zero hunger. Interestingly, they have identified as well. So that's kind of one way that you could go about thinking about, and I do encourage you to go and have a look at this a little bit more detail after today and see how well or if you could align your business strategy to any of these goals. Okay, so let's move on. So we've kind of talked about, why should you do it? Now let's go to the kind of meat of this session, thinking about, okay, how can you go about it? So essentially, there are 3 different ways that you can create social impact, social value as a business. One of which is internal practices, second one, products and services, and third one is kind of straightforward philanthropy. So I'm just going to talk through these 3 areas briefly, and then we go to case studies where we can explore in a little bit more detail how you might want to go, or how you might go about this. So internal practices first. So this is something probably all of you have done a little bit already. So it's about the company policy and practice. It's about workers' rights, things like parental leave, things like that create social value and improve the well-being, health and well-being of your workforce, or the and the supply chain as well. And then going to the products and services. So products and services, they're kind of 2 different things under that heading. First one is kind of more straightforward, thinking about your supply chains. I gave you that IKEA example there earlier. So looking at the conditions under which the products have been supplied or purchased. And then there is a kind of social innovation side to that as well. And I mentioned those social ventures there earlier. So it's about creating or improving products to generate greater social impact and value. And then there is a kind of more standard philanthropy where businesses can find opportunities that are kind of strategically related to your core business, and you want to be supporting that, either at the locally or more wider as well. So I'm going to talk through 3 examples about how businesses have gone about this, and I'll be talking about these organisations on this slide. So it's a lot of different organisations under kind of 3 case studies. So the first one I will be talking about is the Lloyds Banking Group, and the partnership that NCVO has with the Lloyds Bank Foundation as well, supporting the charities that they work with, including the Mental Health UK. And then I will kind of pass I kind of have a conversation with Adwaiz, with Ria and Jono from Adwaiz, and they will be telling about their experiences of creating social value as a business, and be interesting to hear about their experiences, how they did go about it. And then there's the last area is around KPMG, looking at their involvement with the Living Wage Foundation work and support, and working in partnership with their cleaner suppliers, ISS. So just briefly, first of all, about about Lloyds Bank. So this might be a familiar image. You may have seen the similar campaign that Lloyds Bank ran last year. I think it was designed by Adam and Eve, and they did win prizes from that TV advert campaign around mental health. And I went to a session last year where they were kind of sharing the results of that campaign, and actually they did create, they did measure the impact that had made on people's awareness and perceptions of mental health, and it was a really positive story. So as a business, you can create social value like that way too. But what I really wanted to talk about is more the work that we have been doing as an NCVO with the Lloyds Bank Foundation, which is the charitable arm of the Lloyds Bank. And they generate impact through philanthropy. But interestingly, kind of 3 different ways that they do that. So there is the most forward, most traditional way of funding charities, which they do. So they are specifically targeting smaller charities in local communities that are supporting people with multiple and complex needs. And so here is there is an example of the impact report that they publish annually, just to show how many people and what sort of causes they have supported. But in top of that, they also do 2 other things, which I think is really important and exciting. First of all, they provide capacity building support for charities. And that's where NCVO works together with Lloyds Bank Foundation, where we are working in partnership with local small charities, and we support them with their strategy and their planning so that they become more effective and better at creating and evidencing their impact as well. And then also, interestingly, what Lloyds Bank Foundation also does is that they collect that evidence, they collect that data, both in terms of what impact they have made, but also what are the issues in the local communities. And they actually have been really, really active in recent years, identifying specific issues, such as issues around domestic violence and abuse, which is really interesting because it's a bank. But this is something that had come up from their partnership with local charities, and there is like an urgent need for more of this support. And they have ended up actually giving both written and oral evidence to the government around the new domestic violence and abuse bill, because they have collected that evidence and they knew what the issues are from talking to these local charities. So I think it's quite really interesting the story. Okay, so that's, I think, enough of me talking now. So I think it's my time to, it's time for me to introduce Rhea and Jono to talk about their work. So, sorry, I don't see everyone's, I think they are there somewhere. Rhea? Oh, I can see you now. Sorry, I only have and Jonas. I see you both. I could only see a few people at the time, so I just wanted to double check you are there.
We're definitely here. Yeah.
So, just briefly introducing Adwaiz and both of you. So, first of all, thank you so much for coming here and being happy to tell your story. So, a little bit about Adwaiz. As Emma was saying, they are a creative communications agency and focusing on food and beverages essentially, but also other areas. And they are supporting a range of clients ranging from Hard Rock Cafe to Hyatt's Great Scotland Yard, who hopefully will be opening tomorrow, if fingers crossed. And also, they work with health and wellness brands such as Create Foods, Abundance and Health, and Naked Biotics. And Rhea has been in the company since it was first launched, and in January 2020, was pleased to introduce their company's CRS program. So she will be talking a little bit more about that. It's very exciting. And Rhea also has a background working with non-profits and working and volunteering for charities such as Sue Ryder for 5 years. So has this passion to create social value as well as run a successful business. And Jono is Adwaiz's account manager, but it will be interesting you'll be interested to learn that he's also a chef. So he has, most recently he co-founded his own restaurant in Sydney before returning to London. So multi-talented folk here. So without further ado, I pass on to you. If you, and I think I have kind of few questions I wanted to ask you specifically, because I think what I have learned, a lot of businesses, first of all, they're a bit stuck. They don't really know what to do, how to start this work. So they're very keen to do something to address the societal issues that we face today, but feel that they don't know where to start. So can you tell a little bit about how you started this work, and in particular the partnership that you've generated with City Harvest and other charities?
Yeah, of course. I guess for us it was definitely a passion project. So, you know, as the company, we did a bit of a restructure at the end of last year, and we sat down and we thought about, you know, our ethos, our vision, our values, and decided that, you know, we would really like to support some incredible causes with skills-based work. I previously had a role in another company where I had to help set up their CSR program or initiative. So it was something I really enjoyed, and I also saw the benefit for the team and how empowered they felt to be helping some wonderful causes. So it very much inspired what we're doing here. But essentially, in short, we decided to create an initiative that would be available for all of the team, so be it senior members of the team or interns who joined us, to have one working day per quarter, so 4 days annually, to contribute to a charity of their choice. We were very keen for this to be skills-based work, you know, so that people could use it as an opportunity to learn different skills. So a lot of our social media team were keen to learn more creative skills, so graphic design and illustration. So we thought this would be a wonderful opportunity for them to do so on work time, but for an epic cause. So we then decided to create the initiative. We consulted with the team, feedback was positive, and we decided to work with City Harvest as our company's charity of choice. However, if the team wanted to work with other charities, we would support them in introductions or kind of things that they could do. And we actually found them by chance. We are most of our work is focused on the food and beverage space, and we decided that, you know, we couldn't really call ourselves passionate about food and beverage if we didn't care about the full circle. And City Harvest put surplus food to good use in a very sustainable way. So we outreached them, and we were very lucky to go and visit them at their warehouse, where, to be honest, that kind of sealed the deal for us. They were really inspiring individuals, such incredible people, and they had they were just really amazing energy to be around. So Jono and myself and one of our other account managers went and spent the afternoon there and just thought, you know, we want to help these guys, and we feel really really engaged with what they're doing. And that's essentially where our initiative was born. And I know that Jono will kind of talk through a little bit about what we've been doing of recent. But yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to be invited to a DKUK roundtable by the lovely Gunnar and Deanne for Morten Albeck's talk on the meaningfulness quota. So, you know, the correlation between running a successful business and the happiness of the team. And I think his words were incredibly impactful, and Rhea and I left thinking, okay, how can we sort of build this into the structure of the agency? Obviously, it's sort of similar to the slides that you were talking about earlier, Cindy, on social value. You know, ultimately, people want to have a purpose and create impact. People want to have progression, and people want to feel like they belong somewhere. So we looked at ways that we could sort of instill this into our working calendar more than just, you know, client meetings and sort of external work. How can we build the team's sort of happiness and desire to be a part of you know, things moving forward, which is really exciting. So we did team activities, having we'd all sit down for a lunch once a week, cooked in-house, and sort of had that team bonding exercise. Obviously the CSR program has been born. We've also been supporting another sort of charitable activities as well, where we're with the What We Want app supporting on the NHS, the Angels of the Nations campaign, which we're currently supporting, which is a GoFundMe campaign to provide all the key workers who have passed away from the coronavirus angel statues, which is really lovely. And of course, the lovely work that we're doing with City Harvest as well. Lovely.
So you sound like you're very busy. So I suppose one thing if I was a business, I might be a little bit concerned or worried that, you know, how about all the staff time and business resource that would be sort of lost through your pro bono work. So what has been your experience in that sense?
I think it was a daunting prospect because at that time that I introduced the initiative, I reported to a board, and I think the kind of communication that I had to kind of give was, you know, this is 4 working days per person, so if you times that by 10 members of the team, that's 40 days annually that they could be doing client work, but we will be doing charity work. But, you know, I think there is, that makes you feel slightly apprehensive about doing it, but I actually believe the more freedom and the more empowerment you give people, the better the quality of work that you'll have throughout the company. Plus, you know, I think it gives people an amazing kind of opportunity to train and learn different skills. It definitely helps with the why, around why you come to work every day, particularly where City Harvest are a food waste charity. So I think the time commitment it felt slightly apprehensive to me at the beginning, because it is a big commitment annually. And, you know, obviously because of the pandemic, much of our work has all been remote so far, so it's hard to quantify exactly how many hours we've done because we haven't been there on site. We've been doing all the work remotely. But I definitely wouldn't, I think for small businesses, they might be slightly scared to think, okay, if we take this chunk out of our year, you know, we could be more profitable. But I actually think that the more freedom you give people, the more sustainable your business is going to be. And City Harvest are a data-driven charity, and so it's very easy for them to quantify, if we spend X amount of hours, the impact that it's made, which is also impactful for us from a reporting perspective, when we have to say, okay, here's the hours we spent, but here's the impact that it had.
Great. Thank you, Ria. I mean, that's kind of a really nicely takes us to the final case study I want to share with you today, before talking a little bit about planning for social impact and then having questions and answers. So the final case study is the work that KPMG has been involved in. So they were one of the early adopters of the living wage when it was first introduced in London. And I was kind of privileged to be the evaluation partner. So it was, again, another partnership initiative where Trust for London was resourcing it, giving support funding for London citizens, that way they called that time now Citizens UK, and they partnered early on with KPMG. So the campaign was launched about a decade ago by London citizens, and it's quite interesting. There is, again, whether the starting from the problem, and the problem wasn't necessarily about the wage itself, but the amount of time that families could spend together. Because what citizens had learned is that the nature of low quality part-time work meant that cleaners didn't have enough time with their children, because they were just traveling from one job to another, and they had to use bus rather than tube because it was a cheaper way of commuting. And they were sharing this issue, and Guy Stallard, who was the facilities manager in KPMG at the time, heard this and just felt that, you know, this is just not right. So it was a sort of a moral case to start with. So they worked really hard and thought, okay, what can we do? And as a result of those conversations, they actually developed a totally new cleaning delivery model, because it was focused on the cleaners, because cleaners were the ones that were on those were receiving that low pay. And they worked in partnership with ISS, that were a supplier for cleaners, and redesign the way they do the cleaning. So instead of having just very practical things, instead of having a rubbish bin for each table, there is a one recycling point. So the cleaning became more efficient. They also changed the contracts so that the cleaning staff were more full-time rather than part-time. So they didn't need to do that travel time, and they could get home early enough to help with to see their children and have family dinners together and so forth. But what also then happened, that there was this kind of emerging business case that came about, and that's why KPMG continued to be really supportive of the living wage today, because what they also discovered, again during their own research and resourcing the evaluation of the impact, is that they have a massive drop in staff turnover. I think it's 40% drop in staff turnover, which again, then meant that there was less resource needed for recruiting staff, because as you all know, it's an expensive and resource intensive thing to do. And also another thing that they learned is, because they were having staff for a longer period of time, their skills improved. They were more committed because they felt proud to be working for KPMG. They got a decent wage. So it was kind of really a win-win story there. And I'm sharing this couple of, for the poor quality of the images, but they're from a few years back. There is a picture of Professor Mike Kelly, who was at the time the director of the corporate social responsibility, and even now, a decade later, he's chairing the what then became the Living Wage Foundation today. So. And I know that they're all doing it voluntarily and are very committed, and that has sort of given them a purpose. And again, this kind of purpose comes back with the KPMG kind of doing the right thing. I think is one of their vision or strategy statements. So it's kind of the third way to show how through working in partnership with your suppliers and the charities, you can create social value and be kind of innovative as well, thinking how can we do it better, how can we do it differently. And just to recap, after those 3 case studies, I think these are the 3 key ingredients that you need for successfully integrating social value into your core businesses, and I think that has become clear. Is you need to start with purpose, and what you need to align you need to have, and it would be good thinking about what is the purpose, what are we here for. And you can see big corporations, especially those that have aligned their strategy to those sustainable development goals, they are very, very purpose driven nowadays. Another key element is the partnership and collaboration. All of those stories that we shared, they're all partnership stories. None of the businesses were going solo doing this. So it's important to reach out and see how, find partners in your local communities or in the area of work that you are focusing on. And then the third thing is that, try to have targets and measure the progress that you're making. Because, you can then tell the story internally and externally, the difference that you are making. And it just, there's a miracle. It just makes you feel good. It's good for your own mental health and well-being because you have a purpose. There is what Ria and Jonah were saying there earlier about, being happy to come to work. Same as, I enjoy my work because I know that, I know my purpose. I know I'm doing good. And I'm also a consultant, so I also need to create business as well. So, you can do both. You don't need to be at and or, if or. So just very, very briefly, just the final things. I'm going to just run through these very quickly, and then we have some, hopefully, if there are any questions that you can think of, do add them on the chat, and then we can have some questions, answers at the end there. So just to kind of take away suggestions. So first of all, think big. So think about, base your goals to the size of the real need. So have your kind of Northern Star or Southern Cross if you're in Australia. So what is that problem you want to be focusing on, that you want to be addressing? And then start planning and focus on something small first of all, and then see how it works and check that you're making progress, and then learn, and then you can sort of increment and do a bigger thing as you get more confident with it. I have a few more slides, but I think I'm going to stop here because you will be getting the slide pack afterwards. So do go and have a look. It's just showing you different ways that you might want to start thinking about it. So like, for example, like introducing theory of change, which is sort of like a process that you go through creating social value as opposed to having a business plan. And then things to consider when you are planning for social impact and thinking about your monitoring and evaluation. So that's all I wanted to say, and it's just kind of last slide because I like this picture that we're all human, but we just go through the same stuff differently. So that's why it's important to address these issues. So if you go back to remember that equality, equity image. So some people just need or some things, dogs just need a little bit extra help. So that was all from me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And I think we are ready for some questions and answers.